Well, it might be the first compliment I've had from Mayweather Promotions, which was very nice.
Pro boxing fans here in Birmingham for the next gen show between Yafai and Frank. Eddie Hearn, it's been a busy week for yourself, but here in Birmingham we do want to talk about the card quickly. Galal Yafai, great talent. Just give me your plan for him for the next year.
Yeah, I think obviously when we signed Galal, the plan was to move as quickly as possible. Unusual to start your career over 10 rounds, but when you won Olympic gold, you obviously have incredible pedigree. So that was the plan. Sometimes that makes you a little bit inactive, and I do want to get him a little bit more active. But he's boxed at Madison Square Garden, the O2, Abu Dhabi. Now he's headlining at home. Tommy Frank, the opponent, domestic opponent, just had a good fight with Jay Harris, lost. But I think good to bring a domestic opponent with a little bit more to give and gain in this fight. So looking for him to show his levels on Saturday, and probably only 2 or 3 fights away from a world championship. Got a great card on Saturday. Cyrus Patterson against Conor Walker, really good fight. Soldaker's in a good step up as well, and some of our leading young talent on display. Sold a lot of tickets. Good to be back in Birmingham, and looking forward to seeing Galal Yafai shine, and hopefully he can get himself in the mix of Sonny Edwards and Bam and Julio Cesar Martinez very soon.
Cyrus Patterson, rumours are that if he wins this fight, there's a possible fight with Lewis Ritson up north. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because obviously everything gets out in terms of the schedule these days, and there's a lot of pressure on Cyrus because that fight in the northeast, we feel, with the fighters we have on our roster, can really re-energise boxing in Newcastle. And if he wins, it's a massive payday. It's a huge opportunity. Conor Walker, on the other hand, who you'll speak to later today, is kind of like just absolutely determined to put that to bed and finish that dream. It's a really good fight. You saw Cyrus in a fight of the year contender against Chris Jenkins last time. You know how he fights. It's wars every time. So he must win on Saturday, and if he does, we may just announce a big show in Newcastle.
I do want to talk about AJ gone on the weekend. A lot of people have had a lot to say post-fight, as they do with an anti-Joshua fight. So we spoke to Johnny Nelson the other day at the Dan Aziz Joshua Boatsi fight, and he said, listen, AJ fighting Wilder is a play on words from yourself. You're saying that you want the fight, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen next. AJ could be fighting someone else next. Is it definitely the fight that you guys want, the fight that AJ wants, and it's going to happen next year, early next year?
I don't see how it can be a play on words. I mean, we've spent 6 months in meetings, negotiating. Like, it's a bizarre thing to say. Could he fight someone else? Yeah, of course, if we can't get the deal done. We was in meetings last night for 3 or 4 hours with Skills Challenge to try and get the fight done. I can't make it any more clear what AJ has instructed me to do and what we want to do, which is have one of the biggest fights in boxing against Deontay Wilder. So, if that fight doesn't get made, AJ will stay active. Maybe he fights Tyson Fury, I don't know. But AJ's not in the sport to just fight, just keep taking fights. He wants to take the biggest fights in the division for the most amount of money. So it's bizarre to say we're just having all these meetings and flying to Saudi Arabia just for banter. Do you know what I mean? Obviously we want to make the fight, but at the same time he's going to stay active.
Obviously you've been around AJ. Is the passion in his heart these big fights now? Because I spoke to him after the fight. I said, how long have you got left, AJ? Is it 3, 4 years? Are you willing to fight the Hergovitz or anyone else? Or is it going to be a Wilder Fury and you're done? He goes, listen, 3, 4 years is a long time for me. I don't want to be in the sport for that long. When you see AJ, is that the passion, just the big fights and then get out of the sport?
I think so. I think that's when you're going to get the best out of him. I mean, that's the reason he chose Dillian Whyte, because he wanted to, have that energy in the fight and get himself up for it. So it switched to Hellenius. He had 5 days' notice, got a great knockout. Some people thought it was a couple of rounds too long, but whatever. I mean, you're never going to keep everybody happy. But he wants the big fights for sure. And I think I saw your interview with him, and I thought it was quite an interesting comment from him, because you're right, 3 or 4 years is a long time. I think 2 more years, 4 or 5 more fights. I think that's probably the range that he's looking at, and hopefully they can include Wilder, and hopefully they can include Fury, because that's what he wants.
Do you understand when Tony Bellew and David Hay on the DAZN broadcast say, listen, he might need to have another fight just to fight somebody that it feels like he's fighting a Wilder, to bring up his confidence? Because if he steps into the ring like he did against Hellenius, it could be a tough night for him.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you're going to necessarily gain out of that. I mean, if he's not ready now, when will he ever be ready? One thing I said to him on Saturday in the changing room was, just remember what you've done and who you've fought and the experiences you've gained. you've boxed Dillian White here before. You boxed Klitschko and beat him in front of 80,000. You beat Parker in the unification in front of 90,000. You beat Povetkin at Wembley. You lost to Ruiz at Madison Square Garden. You won the rematch in Saudi Arabia. You boxed Usyk twice, one at Spurs. You've done it all. So believe in yourself. And, I think confidence and belief is important in sport. And I think he's gaining that through his knockout win on Saturday. Could he benefit from having one more? Maybe. Is that, I don't know. But it's not, no one is saying, oh, let's have another one. Everyone is saying, let's make the Wilder fight. So that's what we want to do. Could it go the other way and he fights again in November, December and then fights Wilder in February, March? Maybe, but that's not the plan or discussion at the moment.
When the Wilder fight was getting sort of talks about when he fought Ruiz, AJ was a bit more raw then. Do you feel like he's a better fighter now, a couple of years later, with his boxing skill set than he was a couple of years ago?
Unquestionably. You can say he's not as aggressive. I think that's fair to say. But if you don't look at AJ and say that his feet are better, his defence is better, his distance is better, then you're not actually watching him. So I understand the comment of, but he used to be more dangerous and aggressive. Maybe. But when I think what the Ruiz fight showed, Ruiz was like AJ going in. He wasn't perfect for that fight. But at the same time, in his mind, he was like, I'm just going to smash this guy and then look impressive and then call out Wilder after the fight. He was reckless. He dropped Andy Ruiz. He came in like his old style, trading away, got caught, fight's over. That's the level that he's operating at. You can't afford just to be he goes in against Helenius on Saturday, starts swinging away to finish him, gets chinned all over. You've got to understand what's on the line sometimes, and it's easy to say, no, what you want to do is just do this, do this, do this, but he's improved on so many different levels. And I think that's going to put him in great stead in the elite matchups.
And do you understand when someone like Geordie does his podcast saying, listen, he still lacks confidence, he's still when he's in range, he's not throwing, he still seems to be a bit gun-shy. Do you still see that, though, when you watch it ringside? I
don't see him gun-shy, I just see him more careful. Unless you want to call that the same thing. I just think, honestly, just more intelligent. I do think, I would love to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I think, hands up. But at the same time, there was a lot to lose on Saturday night. And it's all very well saying this, but what if it goes wrong and the career's over? It's not your career, is it? It's not True Geordie's career. And I know True Geordie wants to see this knockout and stuff like that. And, I think he makes some interesting points. But at the same time, there was a lot to lose coming in 5 days' notice on Saturday night.
Do you want to talk about Alicia Baumgardner, obviously the talk of the town right now? A question I wanted to ask you was, rumours started circling online, then we saw a statement. How long ago did you get, I know the statement says the 12th, I think Dan Raphael is saying the 10th it was reported. Is there a reason why the statement was given out straight after the rumours, or was it planned to be like this?
So we got the information at the weekend, Saturday I believe. The commission was made aware. I mean, firstly, obviously, you have to give the athlete an opportunity to deal with the situation and obviously go through the process to protest their innocence. So when we got the news at the weekend, confidentiality is something that isn't actually introduced by Matchroom. It's actually a real thing. The people that need to know, everybody knew immediately. Okay, the commission, the governing bodies, etc. Then the opponent, etc. More out of courtesy than anything. But we had a statement ready to go probably 48 hours ago. But we were speaking to Alycia. We wanted to make sure she had an opportunity to build her statement as well to get it out. And then obviously once you tell the governing bodies start telling the media. So that's what happened with Dan Raphael. So our statement was ready to go probably 24 hours before it starts breaking. But it broke because the governing bodies were made aware. And once that happens, it's never going to be a secret. Do you know what I mean? So for Alicia Baumgardner, obviously she's been through a process. She passed a previous test. She passed her fight night test 3 days later. She's dumbfounded, she's confused, and she has to have the opportunity now to go through that process to protest her innocence. It's a difficult thing to do. We've seen it previously as well. And it's a horrible situation for her, for Matchroom, for the sport. But we are where we are. We're, as I said yesterday in the interviews, we're introducing more and more testing now across more and more fights. And unfortunately, you will have adverse findings when you're testing at those levels.
final one for myself before I let you go. Floyd Mayweather's been on Fight Hype talking about one of his prospects who's actually turning professional to fight Leigh Wood in his first fight. He said, listen, Eddie's a great businessman, I'm a great businessman, let's make it happen. What did you make of that?
Well, it might be the first compliment I've had from Mayweather Promotions, which was very nice. I've not heard of the young kid. I'm sure he's a great talent, that Leigh Wood is a different kind of animal, but obviously Floyd's got to get this kid out there, and they've circled out Leigh Wood, which is flattering to him as well as that guy. And Leigh Wood's got a rather large fight on his hands on October the 7th in Sheffield Arena against Josh Warrington, and I'm sure this young charge of Floyd Mayweather, if he's as good as Floyd says he will get a couple of wins under the belt, and who knows, maybe we'll co-promote him one day.
Well, Eddie Hearn, always a pleasure talking to yourself. Thank you very much.